going on, everybody? In this video we're going to be building a Submariner style watch using an NH35 movement. As we're going to do in every video, we got to do a wrist check before we start the build. So today I'm wearing my Hamilton Khaki Field Automatic 38mm. And with that out of the way, let's get started on the build. So here's the case. It's a Submariner style case, sapphire glass, no Cyclops. It's got the Rolex style clasp. And it actually does have on-the-fly micro adjust as well, which was kind of surprising to see on a case that was relatively inexpensive like this one was. The bracelet came with the case itself as well. And then this also came with the black bezel insert. First things first, let's take off the bracelet. Here I am using a Bergeon 6767F spring bar tool. This has the fine point fork end, which I think works best in most situations versus the standard fork. Here's the dial we're working with. This is a white textured dial with applied indices, and it says Superlative Chronometer officially certified, which is going to be a straight up lie in this case, but that's okay because it still looks cool. And here's the movement. This is a Seiko NH35, so it just has the date function. And the date wheel in this case is white, so it's going to match the dial, which is going to look really nice. So in order to put the dial onto the movement, it has 6 feet on the back, and we basically have to cut off 4 of them. So the ones that you have to cut off will change depending on where your crown sits and where your date is. So this case has a 3 o'clock crown, so we're going to line up our date window with the stem and the movement. And then here I'm just looking at which feet I need to cut off. And then here's a closer look at the holes that I'm looking at on the movement itself. So here, and then 180 degrees opposite of that, there's another hole that the dial will fit into. So here I'm using a pair of Xuron flush cutters. In some cases, you may find that you have to sort of sand down the nubs that this leaves behind, but in this case, I found that the dial still fit on the movement just fine. There were no gaps, so I didn't need to do any additional filing or sanding. Now on the right here, we have our movement. It's in a movement holder, and we're just going to place the dial on top, line up those feet, and just press straight down, and it should go in pretty easily. And then as you can see, there's no gap, so this fits nicely. And now we need to find midnight. So we're gonna pull the crown out to the time setting position, and we're just gonna rotate it until the date starts to change, and then we're gonna go really slow, and we're gonna stop right when it changes date. And this is gonna make sure that when we put the hands on, they're at the correct position, and they line up with the hour markers. Here are the hands we're working with. These are sort of Seiko style hands with the baton hour and minute hands, and then that nice red accent on the second hand. So the hour hand goes on first. We're using just a pair of plastic tweezers here. These are actually carbon fiber. And we're gonna line up the hour hand with the 12 o'clock. And then this gets pressed on. You don't need a lot of force. It's very delicate. And if you push too hard, you could either damage the movement or bend the hour hand. So you want to be gentle. And then next is the minute hand. Same thing here. We're going to line it up with 12 o'clock. And this gets pressed on as well. So next up we have the seconds hand, and this is, in my opinion, probably the most tedious part of the whole build. The second hand is very small and flimsy, and if you're not careful, you can bend it pretty easily. It's very thin. So I'm actually using some Rodico putty to hold this in place. It's a little easier than using a pair of tweezers, and it's a little bit more out of the way. And then you just line up the pin and the hole and press it down just like the other two hands. It's a little bit more difficult just because it's smaller, but once that goes in, we'll press the stem in and wind the movement. And there you go. So the second hand is now moving. This is always a cool part of the build. Once it really starts to come together, you can see kind of what it's going to look like with the dial and the hands. All right, next I'm going to flip the movement around because we need to take the stem out. So to take the stem out, the stem actually needs to be pushed in all the way. There's a little arm here that I'm showing that actually kind of pops out so you can actually see it when the stem is in. When you pull the stem out, the arm moves out of the way to where you can't see it anymore. So I'll push the stem all the way in. And then there's a little kind of hole on that arm. So press that and the stem should come right out. All right, now we're going to take off the case back. So I'm using a Bergeon ball to do this. There are a lot of different styles of case back openers, but this is kind of universal. You can use it for a lot of different case backs. And then this O-ring here, we're going to take this out, put it off to the side. We're going to be greasing that later and putting it back in. And then I'm just going to blow out the inside of the case, just make sure there's no dust or debris in there. And I recommend just doing this periodically throughout the build as well, just to make sure nothing gets in there. Now we're going to take the crown off the case. And we're going to line up the case and put it over the dial and movement. So this is kind of one of my favorite parts of a watch build is putting the dial and the movement into the case because you can start to see what it's really going to look like. And now we have to install the crown and the crown stem. So I recommend buying extras. As you can see here, I have about a dozen. And the reason is because we're going to cut these shorter than they are now. And if you cut too much, you can't really use it anymore. So I just have extras just in case. So the right side of the stem is threaded. That's where the crown's going to thread on. And then the left side is what interacts with the movement. So first thing I'm going to do is thread the crown onto the stem. And basically at this point, all we're doing is checking how much we need to cut off. So I'm going to put the stem into the movement and then we're going to measure the gap. So the stem will click in and then I'm just rotating the crown here just to make sure it winds, make sure it's in the correct position. And then here I'm taking a pair of calipers and I'm measuring from the bottom of the crown to the top of the threads on the case. It's about 5.4 millimeters. And for my first cut, I'm going to take off less than that just because I don't want to accidentally cut off too much. So I'm going to take off about 4.5 millimeters and then remeasure and see where I'm at, see how much more I need to cut off. And it's just a rough cut for now. I'm sort of just eyeballing it. I just kind of want to get close to where I know it's going to need to be. All right, we're going to put the crown back onto the stem. We're going to install this back into the movement and remeasure. And as you can see, it's a lot closer, but it's not quite there. I'm not able to thread the crown onto the case. So I just went ahead and cut it one more time. And now as you can see, it's able to thread all the way onto the case. So now it's the proper length. And now that I know that the stem is the correct length, I'm going to take it out one more time, and I'm going to put thread locker on the threads. Sorry for the jump scare on the white background there. I just don't want it to get on my mat. I'm using Loctite 638. This is pretty much permanent. You can use blue Loctite, which is non-permanent if you prefer, but I'll go with the 638. And you really don't need a lot of this stuff. I only put a little bit on the stem, and as you can see, it's squeezing out of the threads, so that was plenty. And then I'm just using some Rodico here to clean up the excess. Rodico can actually be used to clean up greases and oils and that sort of stuff, so I have no problems using it here. So I'm going to use it to clean up this Loctite. And this is better than if you were to use something like a paper towel, because you're not going to get paper towel fibers or debris or anything in there. All right, and now I'm installing the crown and the crown stem for the last time. And now we need to lube the case back gasket. This is a gasket lube. It's a silicone grease. This box has 2 foam pads in it that are saturated with the grease. So you just put the O-ring in there, twist it around, and then this can be put back into the case. All right, now I'm putting the case back on. I'm going to get it finger tight and then finish it off with the bird jam ball. And there you go. The watch is basically finished at this point. The only thing left to do is to put on the bracelet and resize it. If you guys are thinking of getting into watch builds or watch mods or anything like that, all the tools that I'm using here and all of the parts are going to be linked in the description. A lot of the tools we actually sell on our own website, so we'll link those. Everything else is linked to where I actually bought it from, so it'll be the same items. So there you go. There's the completed watch. At this point, the only thing left to do is to resize the bracelet. So I'm going to do that really quick, and then I'll try it on. This bracelet has screw links, so I'm using a screwdriver to take those out. And then here I'm just adjusting the micro adjust. And here it is on wrist. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If there's any specific build you guys would like to see in the future, please let me know. If you have any questions, leave them down below. And thank you for watching.